Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about some of the strategies that car dealerships are adopting to navigate the current market conditions. Before we get into this video though, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. And then if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. Let's get into it. So the first thing that dealers have been doing for months that they're going to continue to do is not have a whole lot of pricing transparency when it comes to online prices. Now, this mostly applies to new cars, but also slightly applies to used cars. I guess we'll quickly talk about what dealers are doing with used cars. What I've basically seen is that dealers will just have a call for price on used cars, and then they'll just decide, what they want you to pay for that used car when you call in. And so it's one of those things where I feel like at this point, most people just decide to not talk to those dealers that have call for price because they understand that they're probably going to be asking way more than what the other cars are posted for, and that's why they don't have a price posted online. Now, when it comes to new cars, it's a little bit more complex. What most dealers are doing is they're just posting the MSRP prices of vehicles online, but then they'll have something in the fine print that says MSRP price does not reflect, actual transaction price, and actual transaction price is determined by the dealership at the time of sale, right? It'll be something like that in the fine print. And so this is the dealer's way of saying, yeah, this is what the manufacturer says we should charge for the vehicle, but we'll decide what we ultimately charge for the vehicle. Now, in some cases, dealers are actually willing to discount off of MSRP depending on the vehicle. But in most cases, what I've been seeing is that the vehicles are actually selling for over MSRP, and the dealers don't want that manufacturer to know that they're selling vehicles for over MSRP, and they don't want their vehicles to be posted online for over MSRP because that's going to hurt them within search results, right? If you look up a new vehicle, right, most people, what they do is they go price lowest to highest. And so if the dealer just has the MSRP price posted, then they're going to be like in the bulk of the search results that someone will look for. But if they have their over MSRP price posted online, then they're going to be at the end of the search results when this person is looking through vehicles. Dealers know this. And so this is, again, a dealership's way of basically getting more people to call into the dealership because they're just showing the MSRP, right? It just looks pretty straightforward. And then once the person calls in or once the person visits the dealership, then the dealership will kind of determine the pricing based on if that car deal makes sense for them to put together, right? Dealers are still saying no to car deals because they think they can make more money off of another customer on that vehicle. Or sometimes it'll go one way or the other. Like, again, there are still situations where a person will go in and buy a vehicle and pay over MSRP for it. Another person will go in same day and pay under MSRP for that same exact vehicle, just based on how they interact with the dealership. Now, the next thing that I'm noticing that's becoming more and more commonplace is dealer accessories. And this is something that has, again, happened for years at this point. But it seems like more and more dealers are starting to adopt putting dealer accessories on vehicles as a way to make a markup on a car without actually charging a markup. And what I will say is not all accessories are created equally, because you have some accessories that are put on vehicles that actually provide some level of value. Some examples is like window tint, right? That's something that you can actually see that actually provides value on the car because it prevents less sunlight from coming into the car, so it makes you get less blinded while you drive, and it keeps the car cooler, right, in the summer. So that actually has some inherent value. Another good example would be paint protection film on the front end of a car, right? Dealers will install paint protection film on like the front bumpers, the hood, all of that. And so then your car, if it has like a rock hit it, right, instead of chipping the paint, it'll hit the paint protection film. And so then it'll keep the paint looking like new for longer on the front end. And so those are examples of two products that actually provide value. But there's a lot of dealer installed products that don't actually provide any sort of value, like nitrogen filled tires, for example. I've seen like alarm systems that are put on cars. And I mean, I'm sure you guys can name a bunch of different things you've seen at dealerships. Regardless, this practice of putting accessories on vehicles is just becoming more and more widespread, because what dealers can do is they can take an accessory, and especially the crappy accessories that cost next to nothing, put it on a car and then ask, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 for these accessories. And so then instead of asking, on a brand new car, for example, $2,000 over MSRP, a dealer might put an alarm system on that car and say, hey, it's $2,000 for this alarm system. So it's pretty much the same thing. And so just expect for that to continue. Now, the next thing that dealers are trying to do is purchase as many used cars as they can possibly manage, because the used car market is a lot hotter than the new car market right now, just because of affordability. And so I've just seen this huge increase in used car dealer inventories over the last couple of months, and I expect this to continue. And so just kind of expect a lot of new car dealers are going to become used car dealers. And frankly, a lot are already basically used car dealers at this point, because the used cars aren't selling. And so the dealers are like, well, if that's not selling, let's just continue to buy what actually is selling. So the next move that dealers are making is pretty interesting. So prior to the pandemic, there was this huge wave throughout the dealership world where more and more dealers were paying their employees, especially salespeople, off of volume rather than gross commission. What this means is that their staff was paid off of how many cars they sold rather than how much profit they made on the cars. Now, the reason why this style of pay plan worked really well prior to the pandemic is we were in a market where the new car market was selling around 17 million new cars per year. And with the used car market, I think retail sales were over 20 million units per year. And the market was just kind of in this place where it was almost stalled out in a sense, it wasn't growing anymore. And so dealers thought, okay, well, profits are pretty much capped at where they're at. And so if we pay our employees off of volume, then they'll focus more on selling more cars. And so then that'll help us bump up these numbers, right? And so the dealership will keep making about the same amount of profit per unit, but then we'll sell a lot more cars. And so then it'll just be a win-win for everyone. And frankly, it worked really well for certain dealers. The dealership that I worked for, they adopted this style of pay plan, and it worked really well for the dealership. It actually helped out quite a bit with employee retention. Now, once the pandemic happened, this whole wave just completely stopped, and now it's starting to reverse. There are a lot of dealers that adopted this volume pay plan that are now going to be going back into a commission style of pay plan. The mentality now is, well, volume is slightly increasing, but not that much, right, with new car sales and with used car sales, but profits are going down like crazy. This is what dealers are seeing month after month, is that they're making less money on a per car basis. And so the thought process is, well, if we go back to paying our employees off of gross commission instead of volume, then our employees are going to focus on making as much profit per car deal, because that's how they're going to get paid. And so then this is what's going to in turn make the dealership more money, right? We went from a market where the focus was increasing volume to now we're in a market where the focus is, well, making it so the profits stop going down month after month. And so again, we'll see what happens. I think that it's going to be mixed. I think that for some dealers, it will be a success. There are a lot of market shifts that have happened over the course of the pandemic. And so there are certain dealers that were in markets where focusing on volume would have been the thing to do prior to the pandemic, but now the thing is to focus on profit per unit based on the inventory that they have available to them and the allocation they're getting with new cars. Whereas other dealers, I think this is frankly going to backfire on them, because they're in markets where it's just the prices that they might be asking on vehicles to support these gross commission pay plans aren't really going to work within the markets that they're in. And so what they're going to see is they're going to see a decline in volume, and frankly, they probably won't see that increase in profitability that they want. But time will tell on this one. So in summary, car dealers are making a lot of changes to adjust to this crazy car market, and we'll see how these changes pan out. But I do want to cap things off with going over my personal opinion with some of these changes and whether or not I think that they're the right thing to do, in the sense of making it so dealers are actually going to be better off from a business perspective. I'm not talking about the right thing to do in terms of, appealing to customers, because you have to remember, again, dealers are for-profit businesses. Now, a big one is going to be the pricing transparency thing. I do not agree with dealers basically just posting cars online and not posting the prices that they're selling those cars for. I not only think that it makes it so there's a much worse experience for customers, but it frankly is it's a bad look for dealers. When you have people call in and they think a car's a certain price and it ends up being another price, it's a horrible customer experience. And it's you're not going to get that person as a customer. And so, if a dealer wants to charge over MSRP, fair enough, post it online. And I can tell you that there are dealers that I talk with on a regular basis that have cars that they sell for over MSRP, and they post those cars for over MSRP online. They're completely transparent with their pricing. And the experience that they have with the customers that they deal with is so much better than the dealers that do not post what they're going to be selling that car for online, because the people, like, they can clearly see it. They can clearly see this dealership wants a market adjustment of 5, 10, 15, whatever it is, right, over MSRP. And so then if they call in, it's not, hey, how much are you selling this for? It's right there. So then they call in, and then the conversation is, I see you have this posted online for $10,000 over MSRP. Would you be willing to take MSRP? And you know what? Maybe the dealer would be willing to take that deal. But regardless, pricing transparency, whether a dealer is going to be selling a car at MSRP, over MSRP, or under MSRP, I think is the best possible thing for dealership profit and, frankly, for customer satisfaction and to get the most amount of customers. And then when it comes to pay plans with salespeople, that's another big one that I want to comment on before we cap things off with today's video. I think that this is going to, frankly, be good for certain salespeople and for certain stores, because there are certain regions within the US where the markets have just like blown up in those regions, and the salespeople would benefit like quite substantially from being on a gross commission pay plan. Like, they would actually make more money, which would in turn help out with employee retention for the dealership. And employee retention is everything for car dealers, because if car dealers have a more veteran staff, then that means that they're going to sell more cars overall. And so I think that it's actually going to be really good for some dealers, but for other dealers, I think that it's just like this like desperate plea to try to keep things together, and their market's just ultimately not going to support it. And so I think that the best thing for them to do is to actually like just realistically look at like the market that they're in. Look at the market that they're in and go, okay, this is the customer base that we have, and so this is what we have to do to serve this customer base, but then also maintain profitability. And well, making our salespeople paid off of gross is probably not going to do that, because we're going to lose all of our salespeople based on the demographics that we sell to, which means that we won't ultimately be able to build up our store from a volume perspective. Regardless, let me know what you guys think about these dealer changes. I'll see ya.